Hey everybody, I'm Sam and you're watching Growing Older Gay. This is Kitchen Table for Friday, June 27th, 2025. This is our last episode of Pride Month 2025. And while we haven't really concentrated on Pride too much, there's just so much of it going on out there. Well, there's plenty of it out there on social media for you to absorb. And if you're in a town that already had your Pride, or maybe you're in a city where it's coming up this weekend, like San Francisco, you've got all of that going on, you know all about it, and it's easy to find on the internet. But we're going to touch on it just a little bit here in our episode today. But first, you might have noticed if you tune in every week to our podcast style show here, we weren't here last week again. That's like twice in the last recent history that we have skipped a Friday, and that's because my husband and I were up camping with a group of friends up in northern Arizona. It's been already well into the 100 teens here in Phoenix, Arizona, and we had to get away for the weekend and get away to the heat where it was much cooler, down in the low 90s, where it was really nice. And we love camping, and right now we don't have an RV or anything like that, but as you can see here in the pictures, we have a palatial setup with our tents and our canopies and our whole sort of almost glamping kind of setup here. At least all of our friends think we're glamping. And it's just a couple of easy up style put up canopies, and we have a tent that hangs inside one of those, and it's like a 10 by 10 bedroom, full with a queen size bed and nightstands made with totes, and of course rechargeable LED lights. So we really had a good time. It was a nice recharge to get away from the heat. And I want to talk to a few things that are actually good news items. First one is the Chicago airport could actually get our nation's first gay bar inside the terminal. The guys who own and run Sidetrack, which is a long-term institution in Boys Town in Chicago, they are petitioning to actually open up a location at the Chicago airport. They are, of course, waiting approval on this, but they are very excited about it, and they believe they have a good chance of getting that lease and getting that option to go in there and open up a second location of Sidetrack right there in the Chicago airport. And given Chicago being quite a progressive and gay-friendly city, pretty gay-centric city, I've come to learn, it might just do quite well there, so we'll just have to wait and see. Another piece of good news in Las Vegas, Nevada, the state legislature has actually made the Fruit Loop in Las Vegas an official historical landmark. The Fruit Loop, if you don't know, is sort of the neighborhood in Las Vegas, or rather at least the collection of a lot of the gay clubs and gay establishments that are all in the same area. There's a lot of stuff clustered together, and they have managed to get the entire state legislature to mark that location for eternity. So I think that's a wonderful thing, especially in spite of all of everything going on right now, to find that even in a state like Nevada, which is not necessarily blue, it's kind of purple, that they were willing to go for that. And this is an area of town that has been known as the gay area since the 70s. And so to talk about Pride just a little bit, it's been a month of a lot of celebrations. There have been big protests, which a lot of our community have been at for our own reasons and for your own reasons, whatever those are, or maybe multiple ones. But I have seen on social media just been so many big, huge Pride celebrations all around the country and even around the world in some foreign locations, particularly down in Central and South America. I've seen a lot of good stuff going on, and it's just beautiful to see in the land we live in right now, this much celebration and this robust level of getting together and being out and really presenting who we are out there as a community and being amongst each other. It just, from my own experience, it makes me feel good to be among my people and know that we're okay. We're all still here in spite of everything going on. We still have a sense of community, and it's very strong right now because of all the adversity that's coming at us. And we do live in a time that is maybe not as adverse as the 60s and 70s, but the powers that be are really trying to push us back that direction. And as many people know, the Stonewall riots were one of the pivotal times in LGBTQ history back in New York, where riots finally erupted from the police cracking down on a lot of the gay clubs there and just generally treating the gays badly. And this is segueing to the fact that I found a great podcast this week that really hones in on the history of not only Stonewall, but one of the big figures of the Stonewall riots, Marsha P Johnson. The podcast is called Afterlives, and this season it is entirely dedicated to Marsha P Johnson, who she was, how she lived, and what she contributed to our community. Raquel Willis is the host, and she brings in a lot of other people and important characters from that era that can speak to not only knowing her, but what it was like to be around during that time and what actually happened during the Stonewall riots. And lore has it that she was one of the first people, or if not the first person, to throw a brick at the Stonewall riots. Well, that is debated, and that is lore, but they delve into these things, and they've got a number of different people who were there who all talk about it in very fond tones about that time and what was accomplished. And of course, there's been a lot of news around the Stonewall Inn in the last couple of months, with it being, sort of a federally operated franchise. They've taken the T out of the Stonewall, so to speak. And obviously that's going to really turn and be probably something we're going to hear about come Sunday, which is the next thing I want to talk about. And that is Sunday, June 29th, is the 56th anniversary of the Stonewall riots. Sort of rounding out Pride Month, at least in New York, is going to be a pretty good sized gathering. I would say maybe even a little bit of a protest, at least a remembrance there in New York on Christopher Street around the Stonewall Inn, celebrating 56 years since the Stonewall riots. And, this touches me. Obviously, I wasn't there. I was actually just a few months old in 1969 when this happened, but 69 is my birth year, which I guess I'm giving away my age. It's 56. But, I'm grateful for those that came before me and did what they had to do and marched in the streets and protested and busted their ass so we could do whatever we want to do with ours today. We have this life today because of those that came before us who stood up and marched and protested and showed up to do a lot of the things that we have to do today. And we are back in an era where the people out there that fear us, that hate us, that just for whatever reason think that we need to be put down and put back, those people are out there and they're in power and they're doing a lot of things to hurt our community, LGBTQ plus wide. And most of you know this. This is not going to be news for most people watching this. So I guess my message is we are sort of going back in time a little bit to see what had to be done back then. I encourage you to give a listen to this podcast. It is well produced. Raquel is amazing. She's an activist in her own right. And the more you listen to this, you'll understand that. It's just so well done. And it really gives a wonderful, honest, and very sort of probative window into Marsha P Johnson, the Stonewall affair, and the whole thing. So I really encourage you to learn about our history. And that gets me to the last thing I want to talk about. And that is the fact that we are in charge of our own history right now. As we saw from the Stonewall website being edited, a lot of the government websites being edited and gay taken away and trans being taken away, and a lot of the media out there, especially the large mainstream media, is being encouraged to forget about who we are right now and not talk about that. And there's plenty of other stuff for them to talk about. The bottom line is we need to be the keepers of our own history. Because while we believe that everything's going to go back to normal in 4 years and we're going to be able to put everything back together, the possibility is we might not. When the pandemic happened just 4 or 5 years ago, we haven't completely got back to normal from that. And that wasn't necessarily a political problem that we had to fix. That was just something that happened, that there are still holes in our society out there that are not yet put back together. There are still things that are forever changed, patterns and things out there in our society. And this administration and what they're doing to our community is something that's going to take a long time for us to get back from. One of those things is protecting who we are, what we're about, and who came before us and what they did. So if you have remembrance of those years, if you're old enough to remember those days, do a memoir, have a website, put stuff down, get with your friends, square away some of those things. Make sure that we have some of our history out there. And that's a lot of what I'm doing here on my shows, although I really can't hold a candle to some of what I've seen out there in the way of the old timers who have really brought it out, and I'm grateful for them. We need to protect that information and hold it private even, because the government has shown that they're not going to be the keepers of this for eternity. So that's all I've got today. I love you all so much. I'm so proud to see so many people out there in our community in the streets and celebrating and fighting and standing up for who we are, because we are of value. We deserve to have a happy, joyous, and free life, just like anybody else. There's nothing wrong with us. We are healthy, happy human beings who deserve that in our society. And sometimes we just have to fight for it. So you can see our latest video right there. I encourage you, please subscribe to our YouTube channel right there. We've got a lot more content that's in the works right now, and that'll be coming up soon. Have a good weekend.